Port of Portland, Metro, and the Oregon City Planning Commission. No concerns or comments were forwarded to the City Commission. Additionally, there was a super notice that was forwarded or sent out to all residents in Oregon City. An open house on this plan was held on July the 24th in the City Commission chambers. Also, the plan was presented to the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and to their general membership at their June 27th Good Morning Oregon City meeting. An open house was also held in regards to the Center Cal proposed development at the landfill, and at that time, additional information about the plan amendment was distributed, and that was attended, I think, by about 60 or 65 people, as I recall. We've also had a number of meetings around the Clackamas Cove development, and we have talked about the plan amendment at some of those meetings as well. The plan before you this evening requires a public hearing and your recommendation. That will go then to the City Commission, which you will meet as later on this evening. That requires a public hearing, and if you wish to move forward, a first reading of that ordinance later on this evening. The plan objectives that we're trying to accomplish are found on pages 5 and 6 of the plan that you have before you. The identified projects address those objectives. A summary of the projects are provided also, and I've mentioned they're already in the lobby. And let me just mention a couple of other things here that we're trying to accomplish with our, get over here, what we're trying to accomplish with urban renewal as well, that you won't find listed in there, but I think is implied. First of all, we are trying to achieve regional center development. With that, we're looking at quality urban development that provides density in an appropriate manner in the regional center area as identified on those maps. We're trying to reduce the reliance on the automobile in those areas so people have transportation choices and other housing choices. It is an attempt to build cities in a way to reduce urban sprawl and contain that urban growth in urban areas, and to provide also greater community amenities. And if we're successful with this plan, you will see additional shopping opportunities, entertainment, recreation, community beautification and streetscape, additional public gathering places, additional dining, and additional arts and culture. It will create jobs. It also is a mechanism to address complex issues in a timely manner that otherwise would not be possible. Things like the landfill development and the cove, which are very problematic sites. Downtown parking, which has been an issue and somewhat of an Achilles heel for downtown. Redevelopment of the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center, which definitely could use some improvements today as we look at that. Improvements to the I-205-213 interchange that may be years off if we do not bring additional local resources to make that happen. The courthouse preservation and restoration. If we do this in the appropriate manner as we are talking in our plans, it will also extend public area activity into the developed areas we're talking about, which extends those evening hours, and that adds to the public safety of the area. It's a way to revitalize and redevelopment places like our waterfront and North End, our 7th Street, downtown, and the Falls area. It provides improved infrastructure, and it also increases the assessed value in that area that later will help us fund some of the operations of our public services into the future. The plan also is drafted in accordance with the approved comprehensive plan and its implementation ordinances. The plan amendment identifies 21 projects or potential project area. Now, the city may or may not develop all of these areas, but the plan provides the opportunity should interest and opportunity to develop each of these areas arise. So it gives us the opportunity to do those. It is the plan's goal to create an environment and target public investment to stimulate private sector investment in the downtown North End district. Now, I'm going to touch on the maximum indebtedness because I think there's some confusion that exists around what that means. The current plan's maximum indebtedness was established at $29 million. The city has spent approximately $17 million of that, so we have an additional $12 million remaining that could be spent. The $17 million investment made to date has helped the downtown district assessed value because it has risen from the frozen base of $50 million to today's assessed value of $135 million. That's a 166% increase since the inception of the district. The proposed plan amendments would extend the debt limits, or the maximum amount that the urban renewal district could spend, to $130 million. However, the commission and our citizenry needs to understand that the authorization to borrow is not the same as actually borrowing the money. Each deal has to stand on its own merits, and each of those arrangements will come before you, such as right now with the landfill and the cove both. We're working on a development agreement that the City Commission or the Urban Renewal Commission is going to have to make decisions on, and also there's a land use process that it has to go through. In each case, a public-private partnership, it's imperative to understand the economics of each deal. Does the developer have sufficient equity in the projects? Is the lender going to provide reasonable levels of debt at reasonable cost? All of those type factors will enter into each area that you look at. Also, because the plan authorizes a certain debt limit, it does not ensure that the district's increment that's created can provide the ability to bond all of that. So the size of the increment created by the development will determine how much debt you eventually would bond. And at any time in the future, the city can decide to terminate the district, pay off whatever existing debt that you have, and get out of the urban renewal business if you decide at that point that whatever projects you have not funded, you do not wish to go forward in completing. I should also say that the goal of this plan, which I think is well within reach, with the projects we're looking at, and primarily in that north end area, is to create a minimum new assessed value growth in the district of over $500 million. Page 26 of your plan illustrates the possible public-private investment and the time frame for this involvement. You will see, if you look at the chart and look at those numbers, we anticipate a 5-to-1 ratio of private investment to public investment. And Mr. Parks has indicated to me that if we are successful, this will provide us an 8% return on our public investment. That is a pretty good return for that type of dollars we're investing in. Now, looking at the special levy, which is another piece I think that is confusing the folks. And probably it's the most appealing when you really begin to look at this, because it lowers each citizen's tax rate and therefore providing a tax decrease if you approve the plan amendment. In fact, amending the plan will lower the combined rate for the Oregon City Tax Code by 52 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. So if you own a $250,000 home, that's roughly $130 a year. This is a result that by amending the plan and extending the debt, the city has to give up the special levy. And in short, the special levy was a legislative fix to Measure 47, which became Measure 50, to make urban renewal districts whole that were injured by that process. But by amending the plan, the city is required to give up that special levy, so it goes away. We feel confident in doing that, though, because we will see a dip in the revenues initially going to the urban renewal district, but with the projects, and primarily the cove and the landfill, is the assessed value that will be created by those should give us sufficient return in short order to make up the difference we've given up, as well as fund the bond or the debt that we're looking at doing. So that is a quick look at the urban renewal plan that's before you. I'm sure there's a number of folks that have questions. You probably have questions. I think we have as many folks in the room here that have spent hours and hours looking at this that can help answer those questions, so hopefully we can give you a total look at this picture.
Okay. If I could just summarize what I heard to see if this is correct. Mm-hmm. Not that we haven't been studying it, but I think it's helpful if we can get it into a smaller package to talk about. The proposal is for a maximum indebtedness of $130 million, but those are project dependent. And the list that you've provided of the 21 projects, you said 26. Did
Page
you?
21.
It's 21 projects, okay. Yeah. The 21 projects, if they're not successful, then there's less increment, so therefore it's the indebtedness of the district is really dependent upon success of the projects to a great degree. Is that true?
I've been stuffing this all day long into a smaller box, and that's a pretty good take at it. It is a substantial plan amendment, which means we identify other
Right.
potential opportunities. To do that, There is an extension of the debt limits, which are necessary if we're going to bring public investment to the projects. We may or may not make a public investment in each of these projects. In fact, our hope
Right.
would be that as we're successful in the beginnings of this plan, that the private sector will pick up a bigger and bigger chunk of that.
Right.
And I lost your last couple of pieces, but.
Well, I think I was, that the 130 million is a maximum. And again, the amount between the 12 million that we have remaining in our expenditure bucket is the increasing, and that is dependent upon doing those projects. So each project has to be evaluated on its own terms, and
Correct.
each project has its own particular funding.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So, and then you mentioned also that if projects don't go, we gain less increment in the urban renewal district, so therefore we have less ability to borrow. So it is sort of self-perpetuating.
What you're doing is creating a maximum debt,
Right.
130 million.
Yes.
That if
I understand.
you were successful to the point that you have the increment to bond that much, you could bond that much. But if you decide not to do the projects, or your success is a little bit below that you do not create a sufficient increment to bond all of that, you may never spend that amount of dollars. It's an authority to spend that much, doesn't mean that you have to. Those are decisions on an individual basis as you look at each project and make a decision whether you wish to go forward.
Okay,
with
and
it.
the act of making a change is to do away with that special levy, which decreases all of our taxes by 52 cents a thousand.
That's correct.
52, we've been saying 53
It's 52 and some odd
and
cents.
change.
others.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's rounding.
52 is the correct
Yeah.
number.
And again, you have to understand that the way that's done with that tax rate, which I gave you some information last evening, is as you go through time, depending on what happens in the totality of the tax code, is that 52 cents can actually go up if we stay
Right.
with the existing system that we have. If we do the plan amendment, the special levy goes away, and so you won't have it won't even be there. But in the future, because the way urban renewal is calculated against all of the tax rates, you could actually see some increases there depending on what's happening in the entire
Okay,
community.
two more questions then. We have talked about a timeline of doing the first reading at the city commission meeting. What if how time dependent, or what are the time constraints that we have? If we needed more time for discussion, is there any reason that we couldn't slip that 2 weeks?
It can slip if you make, if you decide not to have, you need more time to think about it and then come back and do the first reading, then, I think we're on task as we have taken the steps today to do what we've done, and we could just push things back. If you decide to amend what you've heard this evening, I think there are several of those steps we're going to need to repeat. I think we're going to have to send out an additional notice and have another hearing. That additional notice would have to indicate whatever amendments you make this evening. We do have a little bit of time. Again, part of this is working around the development of the rivers, and they are on a fairly fast timeline, and they need to know the commitment of urban renewal if that project is going to go forward and be a success. I'm sure they will work with us if we're talking maybe about a 30-day change, maybe even a 45-day change. If we're talking about months, I think you could realistically lose that project.
Okay, now two more questions. One is that if we were to take out projects which would decrease the maximum indebtedness to something less, first of all, what does that do to our future? And then secondly, I believe you mentioned in a work session that if we had some project that came along, we could do another plan amendment if we wished to add more later.
Correct. First of all, if you're uncomfortable today with the maximum indebtedness and wish to lower that sum, I can tell you where I think you might want to draw the line in terms of projects, and you could debate, that's good, bad, or indifferent, because there's going to be some that fall out of the plan, some stay in. As you move through time, and because some of these, as you see, some of these projects are fairly long-term, and say we may or may not ever get to those. If we did the initial ones, or the ones you thought were the priorities we needed to do, and there's others you wanted to take out of the plan at this time, the community in the future, a different set of commissioners at that time, if they wanted to look at urban renewal and add those type projects, they could always consider another amendment at that time and add that in. Or
Okay.
they, again, they may, you may end the district sooner.
Okay. Do you have more questions
I have a
before the
question
public
about
hearing?
that.
Okay, Commissioner Neely.
These, it's probably more of a statement, which you can say you're correct or you're not correct, but
Okay.
these projects are a list of projects that establishes the maximum indebtedness.
Correct.
In fact, those projects, even when we have whatever we define our maximum indebtedness, this commission or a subsequent commission could actually change those projects. We've had several cases where that's happened. We didn't know about the Amtrak possibility. We devoted urban renewal money to that project, which was not on the original list. I'm not even sure that the 7th Street corridor, as the master plan went forward, was on the original list that was established probably about 20 years ago, or however that maximum does. So, in fact, these projects, even if we were to accept this as the projects and establish this maximum indebtedness of 130 million, in fact, those projects could be changed by this project, by this commissioner subsequent.
That is correct.
Okay,
And you may decide, and again, in the early going, once you've had a degree of success, you may decide, that's all we want to do under urban renewal. Terminate the district, pay off the debt, and be out of the business too, and leave some of those projects out there that you finance other ways.
Commissioner Tidwell.
Larry, how many projects are we thinking about possibly excluding?
Well, it depends on where you want to set the debt limits, but again, I think each of those has some merits, and as you say,
You said coming back to us with some that you would recommend
If that's where we want to go.
if we wanted to go in that direction.
Yep.
So, I mean,
here's the priorities right now, because I think it's most important now. Again, the community may see these somewhat different. Is I think really you have to focus in on the north end projects, or at least most of those north end projects, because we have real possibilities of creating new development and new assessed value in areas that without an investment are not going to happen. I think the Rossman landfill project remains in there. I think the Cove project remains in there. I think the Metro transfer station remains in, even though I am hopeful that that will not require an urban renewal investment. I think other than the area that we're investing in, the infrastructure that will help it. Amtrak Phase 2 remains in there. We've already made that commitment. I think the county shops, it's a little tougher one. I think the redevelopment of that area remains in there. Again, that's one of those things that it may take an urban renewal investment to acquire, if that's what's required, but I think you would be looking at getting that back upon selling that property to a subsequent developer of your choice. But hopefully we can get the county to carry that ball and handle that. I think the Stimson property remains in there. I think the end of the Oregon Trail Museum, I think you need to leave some dollars in there, because if you redevelop that entire area, I think you're going to have to look at dressing that up some. Outside of that, I think the courthouse renovation, I think you need to maintain some money in that. I'm not sure when that's coming forward. It may never come forward. It may be 30 years. But we don't want to see the courthouse go the way of the Liberty Theater, and I think it's going to take some public investment to make sure that's restored and renovated. McLaughlin Boulevard stays in there. I think the Civic Center stays in there. Then you're going to have some administrative costs and some debt issuance costs. And so you're probably looking at, if you just took those projects, you're looking at maximum indebtedness in the neighborhood of $87.1 million.
Commissioner West.
So to change the projects, if we decide to add, or, another commission or us added them back, so do we need a public hearing and to go through this all again?
Same process that we're
Same
going
process.
through today would be
Okay.
required.
Okay, are you ready for a public hearing? More questions? Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing and call forward, I think I'll call you two at a time. I only have 4 people signed up to speak, but you, of course, may sign up at any time. David Kennel, followed by Richard Mazik. Okay. You may both come up together if you like.
You can go first. Okay, mine will be short and sweet. My name's Richard Mazik. I reside in Oregon City. And I just did a quick calculation. There was a total of 116 million plus in projects, and there's $130 million in proposed, and wondered what the difference was.
We can't hear back there.
Yeah, bring the microphone.
Do you have the
Oh,
mic
yeah.
on?
Is it on?
There's a light on.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
I'll repeat. I
Yes,
said, I
okay.
just did a
Thank
quick
you.
calculation there. It was 116 million in projects proposed and 130 million dollars of proposed increase in indebtedness. I was just wondering what the delta was, what that was for.
Well, there's some debt issuance cost in there, and there's also some administrative costs that are tied in that plan.
Okay.
And,
That's at the bottom.
same
Okay.
That's about
okay.
13, 14%.
And I'm not expert at this. I was talking to somebody today who told me about this, and I was wondering if I heard the word bond, if when you go forward with these projects, if you've heard of a tax increment bond whereby some of that indebtedness that you suffer and use to pay for the infrastructure improvements
Mhm.
is then taken upon by the residents of these new communities in the way of they pay back for these improvements that they've received.
I guess I'm a little confused. This is tax increment financing. I think what you
It
may be
is,
talking
okay.
about, is some type of local improvement district. Each state kind of use different terminology. In our case, I think what you're referring to is probably would be some type of additional assessment to a particular area, which could be a piece of the funding in some of these areas, should that decision be made at some future date.
Okay, that was basically it.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is David Kennel, and I'm a resident of Oregon City. And actually he answered some of my questions regarding if this was going to be increasing our taxes, et cetera, and I appreciate that. I do have a couple of questions regarding each project that you have listed here. Does the commission decide solely what project's going to be, what project will go forward, or is there going to be a public hearing? And for example, my concern is for the Amtrak station. I drive by there quite often, and I don't see any reason for additional parking, as it's very rare that there's more than a couple cars in that parking lot. And I don't see that personally as something that needs to be a priority. So my question is, does the public get a chance to have their say on each project, or is the commission going to say, oh, no, we want Amtrak number one?
On the major projects, those do come to the city commission, and in fact, many of those, there's a land use process that's associated with that does require public hearings. If it's a minor project, like some of the facade improvements and things of that nature, primarily that stays with the city commission making those decisions. The big ones, yes, you'll have to put together either some type of development agreement that's going to go through a land use process and a city commission approval before they go forward, because those are pretty complex arrangements that are made. On some of the others, more minor things, it'll be a decision the commission will go forward. It may not go as far as a public hearing in those cases, but every issue that comes before the city commission, there's ample opportunity to comment if one chooses to do that. So.
Okay. And then also you were talking about part of the improvements are to reduce vehicular traffic, pedestrian friendly, et cetera. And I know that when we start bringing in additional housing, especially high density housing, most of these people are going to be bringing in at least one or two additional cars into the city. And I know that from past experience, especially in areas of Portland, that reducing traffic means taking traffic, for example, 4 lanes down to 2, which really doesn't reduce traffic. It makes it more congested. And when you do bring in people, they're going to bring in cars.
Let me first go back to your other question, and I'll come back to that one. Is an additional place to have input on any of these projects is each year the city commission sets the budget as well, and the urban renewal budget is no different. Goes through a budget hearing process before the urban renewal commission and the city commission, so you have input into that as well, which has an impact on the projects that are done.
Okay.
In regards to the transportation, yes, one of the things with all these projects, and that's one of the costs that's associated, because the dollars that the city invests goes in usually into areas such as public infrastructure, improving it. Maybe there's some cost with the unusual cost of the land issues, like the landfill, the methane gas, those type of things. That's where the public investment's going. We're not giving the money to a developer and say, here, build buildings or whatever. We're trying to create the public investment that usually goes beyond just the development. An example of that would be, even though we don't have that plan here this evening, but we're working on, we know that the landfill project is a major traffic generator. We're in the process right now of working with ODOT and looking at a number of different options, and we're narrowing those down. The one that we're focusing in on the most really reduces the volume to capacity ratios out there. In fact, some of those are as low in some of those moving intersections down to around the 77% level, which gives us much more capacity for other development and for the region beyond just the landfill development. A case in point, too, is look at the transportation improvements made around Bridgeport Village. I think one would have to argue that that is functions at a much higher level today than what it did prior to that development taking place. So, yeah, those are things that we're concerned with, trying to address as part of these developments as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just add one additional thing in that beyond that, we're looking at making it pedestrian-friendly, connecting all of our projects together with trails and bike paths and walking so that those are also possible. Many choices. Next, Shaw Spady and Phil Yates, please. You both come to the microphone. Shaw? Someone, please.
Hi, my name's Phil Yates. I live in Oregon City in the Urban Renewal District. And my wife and I also own 3/4 of a block in the Urban Renewal District where the Singer Hills Coffee House is located. Our property, the Singer Hill property, is included in the list of projects on this list over here. It's the plumbing block. It's 11 on this list, and it's 17 on the document that I've looked at. And it's projected for $25 million in private development and $5 million in urban renewal funding by 2012. And nobody's ever talked to me about this. So I just think that's sort of indicative of where I'm coming from on this. Is I think even though there has been some public process in this endeavor, I don't think there's been nearly enough. And as a result, I'm really conflicted about this plan amendment. I'm conflicted because I recognize that there's some potential benefits that can accrue to the region and to the city, but I recognize that adopting this plan has really got a lot of risk associated with it. And having said that, I'd be willing to back this amendment, support it, to increase the debt limit, but I'd like to have a number of changes in this plan before I would support it. The first thing I'd like to do, and this is kind of important, is I think you ought to submit it to the citizens for a vote. This is a $90 million increase in the debt limit. One of the problems that I've always had with urban renewal districts is it's basically an end run against the obligation to get a vote for a GO bond. And I would suggest to you, particularly since somebody's going to probably get the signatures to put it on the ballot anyway, that you go ahead and do it yourself. That's number one. I know that's a risky thing to do, but I think it's important, and it would really help if it got passed. Second, I think this plan should include more specifics. On 23, this laundry list of items here, there's never been, as far as I know, any public process for putting items on that list. Last time I was at one of these meetings, that list showed up. My property got put on that list. Nobody ever talked to me. I've been going to the McLaughlin Neighborhood Associations now for the year and a half I've lived here. I've never seen anybody come and ask the neighborhood what ought to go on this list. I think what ought to go on that list, personally, is different than this North End development, but those are sort of just my biases over somebody else's biases, and through a democratic process, I think I can live with somebody else's biases. What I have a hard time is living with this plan the way it's set forth. My biases are there ought to be a parking garage in downtown Oregon City. I think the bias ought to be in favor of the historic part of downtown Oregon City. The most important thing is a parking garage, and I think it ought to be developed as part of a noise abatement thing for the train. Part of this, I've talked to Dave Leland and Larry and you guys about urban development downtown, mixed use, and it is never going to be mixed use unless you develop some sort of noise abatement downtown. And I think a parking garage over the train, over the tracks, somehow combining both parking and noise abatement would really, really help the downtown. So I think the plan needs more specifics. The thing that I would require, I think, to support it would be a specific that the civic project get done as part of this initial onslaught of development. And that civic ought to include both
Please summarize.
the city hall and the library and maybe the pool. Finally, there are two other things. One, the analysis in this
There are many
document.
people speaking. Could you just
I
summarize?
understand.
quickly?
The analysis in this document is based on demographics that are 20 years old. Look on page 31. You've got demographics from 83, 88. This document hasn't been looked at in a long time. Fourth, the document itself needs a lot more work.
Please, Phil, you're over your time.
you can't even tell what's an amendment. You don't have there's no underlining, it doesn't have an executive summary, it doesn't have a table of contents. How much of it is old material, how much of it is new material?
Thank
This
you.
is
May
not
I-
an open process.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just a couple of things I need to point out here. First of all, the investment, the urban renewal investment that is outlined for Oregon City Plumbing Block is $2.5 million. What we would hope to see if we were going to make that investment is a $25 million investment from the private side. And I applaud the development of Singer Hill Coffee Shop. I think it's a neat addition to 7th Street. I do take issue with Mr. Yates. In fact, we did talk on several occasions when he purchased that about what we would bring to if the development was broader than just the storefront. And what we were looking at is that entire block being developed. That's why some of these projects may or may not come to pass, because the owners may choose, as Mr. Yates has, to do something else. And in that case, if it is not the broader project, we don't bring the public investment to that. If we're looking at something broader and to help encourage that type of development, we may bring a public investment to that as well. Parking garage is part of the Railroad Avenue. That's why that project is in there at that level. But as our strategy, and which did go through a public process as well, is we're looking at actually trying to build on the north end, on 7th Street, maybe even at the south end, and let that development spill into downtown. Downtown is a challenged area. Investment today in downtown would not bring the type of redevelopment to Oregon City that we're trying to occur, and that's why the strategy is to let that spill into downtown versus put that directly into it. Oregon City has tried that on multiple occasions, and we have gone nowhere. That's why we're looking at a different approach here.
Okay, thank you, Shaw.
Hi, my name is Shaw Spady. I live in Oregon City, outside of the UGB, outside of the city limits. About 15 years ago, I sat up here with a friend of mine, Carolyn Flint, who has to be one of the most intelligent people I know, and she said, I may be just a bonehead citizen, but, and these were in conversations about Newell Creek Canyon. I understand this is very different. I have been working to understand how urban renewal works, how the taxation system works, how the repayment of this bond works. And I am not an expert. I am in the bonehead citizen category. But I must have spent 8 hours studying, and I don't understand exactly what's going to happen. So if anyone that's sitting up there deciding tonight what we're going to do with a $90 million potential indebtedness, which, by the way, when you pay it back, as far as I understand, in terms of interest and that sort of thing, will double it. It's not just 90 or 60, it doubles because it costs twice as much to pay back a loan. So my concern is that this is happening incredibly fast. There are questions I have, and I don't mean to just talk about the landfill situation, but if the city is going to invest in infrastructure changes to stabilize the landfill so development can occur, I'm concerned about what about the liability. If the city makes, is the land being sold? Is the liability shifting to someone else? If the city makes improvements there and something goes awry, is the city liable? There are myriads of questions just about number one that I think deserve complete and thorough investigation as opposed to throwing it into a package. I concur with Phil that I believe we need to slow down, and that in order to have this make some sense, because ultimately in some form it is an issue for the citizens. It is a citizen indebtedness. It's not just you four people sitting up there who are indebted, that it go to a vote before the public so that these issues can be discussed further, they can be understood better, the ramifications of all of these numbers will make more sense. I saw that piece of paper last night and I got through about 8 and did pretty good, and by the time we hit item 9, I was in another world. So I just think this is moving very fast. It's a huge indebtedness, and I would concur with Phil that perhaps slowing down, and instead of us fighting through initiative petition to have this put on a ballot, that maybe it would come from the commission to consider doing that as an act of sort of a more democratic process in this large indebted situation.
Thank you.
You know,
Commissioner
one of the
Chabot.
things, I'm going to go against protocol here because we don't really, we've got a lot of people who want to speak here, but I want to just mention something. You know, I try to be, and I try to think of myself sometimes as just champion working with the citizens to make sure that their input is, we get as much citizen input as we can and let the citizens decide on what they can and do not wish to have. The problem that you said, and I think that that's something that we might want to talk about, the pros and the cons of putting this on the ballot, but something that you articulated, and you spoke very well, Shaw. What you first said, you had a hard time understanding it. And I guess what my concern is that if we put this out to citizens to put a vote for it, will they understand it? Because I've been a commissioner for 3 years. I don't thoroughly, completely, wholeheartedly am I an expert on urban renewal by any means. And oftentimes I think people, when they don't understand, they just go ahead and they vote no. And these projects are so, to some, very desirable and bringing a lot of activity, hopefully that will bring activity to Oregon City, and I wouldn't want that to be a detriment if they didn't understand. So I guess what my concern is that, do you think, and I'll ask both of you since you brought that both up, do you think that citizens will understand this if it was put to them on the ballot? I guess we're going to go on because the problem, my whole point with that is that I'm not saying that all 4 of us are experts on this, but you elected us. You elected us to make these tough decisions, to stand in for the citizens because we sit there at these meetings. We sit at the urban renewal meetings, we sit in budget hearings, we look at the numbers, and we were elected by the citizens to kind of move forward with these tough decisions. So I'm just wondering if it's something that I'm trying to sort out in my own head, and maybe I didn't mean to put you on the spot with asking
That's
a blunt
cool.
question like that.
That's
But
Thank you for your
All right.
testimony.
Yes.
Ron Tom, followed by Norm Andreen.
Good evening.
Good evening, Judge.
I'm here as a citizen. My name is Ron Tom, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Oregon City. I'm also a property owner of a number of pieces of property. And first of all,
And former mayor.
pardon?
And former mayor.
And all those things. First of all, I want to commend the city for taking a step that we have a long thought about and only fantasized about. And it's a positive thing. We've had a lot of negative growth in the city, negative growth being residents, increase in residents, and no commercial or industrial property. People have to be reminded that in this city, and I don't know what the current figure is, Mr. Patterson could probably tell us off within a few points, but the last time I checked when I was here, 30% of the property in the city of Oregon City, because it was a governmental entity or a church or some other non-taxable unit, was not contributing one dime to the tax base or the tax bill of the city, and yet the citizens had to provide services by way of water, streets, fire, and all the other services that a city has to provide. So this is a step in the right direction, is to add taxable property, which ultimately will benefit us. And I know there's a lot of people that do not want to see growth in our city, but guess what? We're going to have it whether we want it or not, and the only opportunity that the city has, and through its representatives, is to try to shape and control that growth so that it's a benefit to everyone, particularly the people who are citizens of this community and have to pay taxes. No one likes to pay taxes. Now, with that in mind, I might suggest 2 things. Number 1, no reflection upon Mr. Patterson and members of the staff. It would be nice to have an English translation of this document. Everyone in government, and particularly in my business, I'm very aware of this, talks in a language that no one else understands. Mr. Tidwell brought that up, is it's difficult for the average person to understand. I've had some education. I have difficulty understanding this. And so it has to be explained in layman's language so that we all understand it. The only question that I had was that I realized that there's going to be a drop in the city's rate of
52 cents.
50 cents or so, and we love every drop we can take by way of a decrease. But I'm wondering, since we're going to have a lot of property tied up, the money of which will go into this financing, what is going to be the overall liability to the taxpayers, myself and others, because that money is not going to be going to school districts, and it's not going to be going to the county and other entities. Are they going to come along and now raise their taxes to make up for the lack of shortfall that they're going to get, the lack of income? I don't know that, and that's the
Thank you.
question I'd like to know.
You may address
Yes,
that?
please, you can talk about.
Actually, under Measure 50, each entity has a permanent rate, so therefore you cannot go above that permanent rate. So what you have today is what exists. And what happens with urban renewal in an area, as you well know, you freeze the base, and as the value grows above that, the taxes derived on that above the frozen phase is diverted to the urban renewal district, so those entities don't receive those dollars. To give you a quick, and I'd have to add this back up, I've done it several times, but I can't keep them all in my head. Right now, the downtown district generates roughly $813,000 in property taxes. If we can accomplish the goals we're shooting at, and the Cove and the landfill alone are something like $400 million in the subsequent development, that will generate $2.6 million. Now, you have to give that up for a while, but you can see when that goes away, it takes about 2 to 3 year period before you've covered what was diverted, and they're getting that type of money coming back on an annual basis. So there is today, they are going to have to forego some revenues, but in the end, much higher tax revenues coming into it than what exists today. The other thing that happens with the school district too is what they don't gain at the local level is made up through state finances at the present time, and it's still tax dollars somebody pays. But we
Does that mean it comes to my right pocket rather than my left pocket?
Exactly.
well, it comes from other taxpayers across the state.
Yes, it
That's
does.
Okay, that's all the questions
Thank
I
you.
have, Mr. Mayor, because I don't want you to use that gavel.
Yes, thank you very much. Norm,
Hi, Norm Andreen, and I come here, you made me...
and you live
I live in, outside of Oregon City,
the hamlet of
in
Beaver
the
Creek.
hamlet of Beaver Creek. I'm the vice chair of that organization. I'm also on the planning commission for Clackamas County. I come to you as a private citizen. I'm not representing any of those organizations. I get, on the planning commission, I get urban renewal before me. It's very confusing. I pulled down the RRSs on this thing, tried to read them. Some of it made sense, a lot of it didn't. So I decided to go to the horse's mouth, which is Ray Erlin. Have any of you gone to Ray Erlin and talked and had him explain this to you? This is very complicated. It's an extremely complicated subject matter. The taxes on the schools actually come out of the general fund that are made up, and it's called back-end loading on the school districts. There is no back-end loading on fire districts. Oregon City has a terrible problem with financing their fire districts right now. They're using Clackamas Fire District 1. I understand there's some financial problems in regards to that use. I'm not against urban renewal. So you made me mark down whether I was for it or against it. Really, it should have been neither. But I want you to understand the consequences, your tax consequences of this. You're entering some very, I think, dangerous areas in terms of what functions the city of Oregon City is going to be able to give to their citizens with the fact that you're going to be dropping your tax base 50 cents, more than 50 cents. Where is that going to be made up? The increment of Mr. Patterson is giving a very rosy scenario of urban renewal. Typically, those urban renewals areas last for over 30 years. They keep getting renewed. That's historically what happens. If you go back and you actually study the history of urban renewals, it wasn't used for raw land development. It was used for blighted areas in cities. Historically, I know that because I got my degree in public administration and urban planning. back in the 60s. I understand it's a long time ago, but I don't think things have changed that much, other than the fact that developers have gotten hold of urban renewal and are using it to their advantage. If I believe that if you're a developer and you can't pencil out something to make it work for you, maybe you should be looking at doing it differently. It shouldn't be the taxpayers that you ride the back of. It's my understanding that the gentleman that's doing the Rivers project did the one over in Tualatin. I understand he made $50 million from that project. Why doesn't he use some of his own funds if he thinks that this is such a good project? I would really ask for you to go and talk to Ray and really find out the nuances of an urban renewal
Thank you.
district. Thank you.
If I might comment also, we closed an urban renewal district last year, so we're actually a poster child for
Good.
the way it's used.
I'm
And
glad to hear
and if a
that.
landfill and a garbage pit and a man-made gravel pit and a sewer treatment plant and blighted, if that's not called a blighted area, I don't know what is. But Mr.
Well,
Patterson-
it's all in the eye of the
let's let-
beholder, Alice.
Let's let Mr. Patterson.
Two quick points of explanation. In regards to the special levy, we do give up the special levy. The special levy was created solely for the purpose of urban renewal. Giving up the special levy does not lower the city's permanent tax rate. So the 52 cents is not connected to the city's 505 in any way. It goes strictly into urban renewal. In regards to the landfill, we are anticipating an investment of around $25 to $30 million, which actually works that whole area, not just the landfill. And we're anticipating that the landfill investment will exceed $250 million. So they are bringing big dollars to it.
But-
And again, you have to make sure that these things pencil and make sense.
But
or they
Mr.
don't
Patterson,
happen.
all of that money,
And-
after it reaches a certain goal, stays
I'm-
inside the urban renewal district, does it not?
Yes, and then it's returned.
That's right.
Thank you. We have another meeting in a few minutes, so I'd like to get the last speakers. If we can go through this very quickly. Christine Kozinski and Dan Fowler, followed by Gordon Westfall and Kami Kehoe. Please come up together. Go ahead, please.
Christine Kozinski, Holly Lane. I listened to Phil and I listened to Shaw tonight. And I do also understand that urban renewal is very difficult to understand. But I also know that there are consultants out there who can educate the citizens in a simple way. I believe it's the way that it's presented. I believe that the citizens should be able to vote and to help create the city that they would like to live and recreate in, or recreate in. And they need to have the ability to vote on the amount of debt that they are willing to accept. I wondered if this wouldn't be a good time for the city to take the pulse of your city. Your neighborhood associations, for the most part, are not active. Many of them are inactive. So you're not getting good citizen feedback. I wondered if this would be a good time for you to use your local newspaper. Poll your citizens. Use checkboxes for certain subjects in which you need feedback. Then include 3 to 4 lines for citizen comments. Use McDonald's and your various coffee shops where you can leave your citizen comment forms. They can be turned in to the library or to the city hall. There are various ways that you can get connected to your citizens. The many citizens I have spoken with have indicated they don't want another Target. They don't want the same old thing that they find in every corridor. If the Rivers is to be successful, it must be a destination mall, a center. It must be rich with history and be an actual educational part of the end of the Oregon Trail. It must have shops and attractions which are not found in the Portland metropolitan area in order to attract people from the distances that we want them to drive. There was an article in the Oregonian last Friday. I don't know how many of you read it. It was regarding the Round project in Beaverton, where the developer since 1997 has been in default twice and now faces bankruptcy. The largest anchor store has left, and the retail space on the bottom floor has been slow to fill. I wonder, once we build this wonderful shopping center, what do we do with the urban renewal funds if we face a shortage of tenants? Who's going to pay the difference? Because there is a mortgage to pay. We need to consider the poor economy, the high food, the gas prices in relation to falling salaries. People can't afford a new car. They can't afford to move. Their salaries are going down. They're living to paycheck to paycheck. It seems illogical for the city to go into this much debt when they also are living paycheck to paycheck.
Please summarize, Christine.
Retail has overbuilt in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. They're now coming to Oregon, Montana, Idaho, North Carolina, or North Dakota, and Wyoming, because it's the only place they can profit.
Your
There's
time
too many
is up.
retailers vying for the same dollar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Dan Fowler, I do live here in Oregon City. My comments, I hope, will be very brief. Everyone does come into the room with a bias, and my bias is, I think, urban renewal is a wonderful tool that the cities that don't have it are trying to get it, because there aren't a lot of tools in the toolbox to facilitate the change of blighted areas. And I do agree with you, Madam Mayor, that if that end of town isn't a blighted area in our city, I don't know where it is. I think it fits the criteria for the use of urban renewal. I believe urban renewal is a tool. You use it, you do its job, and you get rid of it. And then you put the added value on the tax rolls. Urban renewal is a big picture, long-term effort. It's something that, to understand it, you have to think 20 and 30 years. I'm sorry, but you do, because it takes time to change areas. If it weren't for urban renewal, I can say right now, we would not have ever purchased the property on Clackamas Cove. We would not be talking about a cove development that could be a wonderful amenity to our city, because it was purchased originally by urban renewal dollars. So urban renewal is and has value in creating a city. I would like to agree with Phil and maybe disagree with some of the people of the city that the downtown parking structure is needed. I think there's two things or maybe three things that would help our downtown develop. One would be, and I'm straying a little bit from urban renewal, but one would be very adequate design guidelines. Two would be a parking structure. And three would be to have the developments planned under your urban renewal project proceed, because that activity will breed activity. It will change blighted areas to unblighted and positive areas of our city, and that alone would take the economics and change them until the downtown it will develop, and you'll see the infill happen. I might put my hat on as I'm a member of the board of Clackamas Heritage Partners, and I wasn't going to talk about this, but I will say that the developers of the Rivers project have been in communication with the end of the Oregon Trail. They're making very valid efforts to connect those projects, and I think if those go forward, you'll see that connection of history that I think is right for our community. So my last comment would be to just urge you to pass the amendment. Give yourself the flexibility that the amount has, but be prudent as you take each step with each project so that it's safe as we can be for urban renewal.
Thank you. Gordon Westfall and Cam Kehoe, followed by Tom O'Brien.
Cami Kehoe, Holly Lane. I'm here today to present to the City Commission and the Mayor what Gordon Westfall, who's the executive producer for Brain Stew Productions, and we want to host what we call the Oregon City Urban Renewal Roundtable discussion. And we already met with Commissioner Neely, maybe, and I left a message with Commission President Tidwell, and I believe Gordon met with him. And what we'd like to do is have an open discussion so people aren't committed to 3 minutes, and it will be televised on 4 different county stations, is that right? 9 different cable stations, 35 hours a week, 45
It's
hours.
9 cable stations, 3 counties, 35 hours a month in reruns.
So so far, I believe we've affirmed that Commissioner Neely and maybe would like to participate. And we're doing this as our commitment to educating the public at large on community matters through media outreach. And actually, after listening today, it actually gave me an idea. I would like to present a challenge to the commission and Mayor Norris to perhaps do a quiz on urban renewal, and if you can pass it, then you can vote on it.
Do we get to grade ourselves?
No.
Will this be an open book test?
So if anyone in the audience wants to participate as well, it's also for the community, so you can attend, and it's going to be taped next week, Thursday, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Willamette Falls Television Station. So if you'd like to participate, let me know. I need to leave shortly, so just grab me, and I can write down your name and number. And Larry Patterson, you're also invited.
Okay, thank you.
So my name is Gordon Westfall, and I live here in Oregon City. And I don't think nobody's saying here that we don't want development. I think we want sustainable development. I think taking a huge debt all at once for all this is unsustainable. If we want to be a beacon in the country, in Oregon, we can take steps today to really be more sustainable tomorrow through prioritizing the developments and giving some opportunity for the infrastructure to be created as the development's being created. Right now, what we're doing is we're jumping into a 2-foot pool from 12 feet up high. And so what we need to do is we need to take baby steps to make sure that we are a sustainable city. And going into debt for 70 years, and the reason I say this is because the Clackamas Town Center is a prime example of debt. Urban renewal. I'm okay with urban renewal on blighted areas. I think it needs to be injected and to bring life back to the community. But when you take money and tie it up for 30 years, not one penny seen into the general fund to create infrastructure through police and fire, and then 35 years comes by or 30 years comes by, and all of a sudden the urban renewal is up and the stores are too small, and now we need to make bigger stores, and then we shove that thing right back into urban renewal. So we have now all of a sudden another 30 years, we still don't see another penny. So there's this thing where I think we should take steps. Sorry about my phone. I think the north part of Oregon City, I think it's great. I really think that myself, I don't think it's all blighted. I think it's just misused. And so I think what we should do is take baby steps. I think we should develop one thing at a time. We should go in debt for a little while, pay it off, make sure it's running right, go in debt again, pay it off a little bit, make sure the infrastructure is going, make sure the people are happy, make sure the local businesses are being injected into the equation. Because I tell you, I went to the mall today in Tualatin, and it's an amazing thing. But I only saw people like this. They were all like this. They weren't talking to each other. They weren't doing anything. They were just kind of walking for the next sign, and it was all full of big business. So I think we can do it. I'm about the development. I like the Cove idea, but let's do it slowly. Get the permission of the people. Get them involved through media. You guys like media so much, you're actually taking over Channel 23 with your 28 station. So the amount of airing for public is almost gone. So you guys like media, and I think media will work. And I think if we take our time, walk lightly on Mother's back, I think she'll pay us back in the long run, and so will the people.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our last speaker is Tom O'Brien, and then we have another meeting that we need to adjourn for. And if you haven't been able to speak your piece, please, if you're able to, if you could stay for the commission meeting, you have an opportunity to address this exact same issue when we sit as the city commission. So I don't want to cut off anyone that wishes to speak. Did you want to hold over and speak then, or you wish to speak now?
I'm going to speak now.
Great. Please, go ahead.
Tom O'Brien, Oregon City. While I went to the presentation the other night regarding this matter, I think reasonably well informed and had a change of heart in my initial feelings towards the proposal. However, I didn't have a total change of heart. I believe that the Rossman landfill site is a very worthwhile project and should be pursued, because it's going to be a long time before we find another developer willing to take that risk. On the other hand, if the Cove is such a wonderful, wonderful thing, and we already have a large investment in it, does it stand to reason that the value of the Cove is going to significantly increase as time goes by, and we perhaps don't need to jump into it with both feet at this time with this particular developer? I still have concerns because of the original use of that property. And I've talked with Mayor Norris about the concerns with what happened down there when the ready mix trucks would return every day or between runs, flush their chemicals, their acids, everything into that land. The asphalt people use the land also. There's a lot of concerns I have from an environmental perspective on that particular property. If we were to go forward with Rossman landfill and the infrastructure that requires to support it, we probably would be able to, instead of ask for 130 million, we could reduce that down and forego about 86 million that's being requested on all of these other projects, if I have the numbers correctly here in what Larry gave us. But beyond that, the citizens of this city are currently risking life and death. Mayor Norris said to me the other night that one of her neighbors would still be here today if this city were in a position to provide proper emergency medical response. And when I look at that, and she's half again as close to the nearest service in terms of medical service than what any of us in the South End neighborhood have, we're debtors. We're gone. So I think we have to take and put some focus onto emergency medical, fire and police and schools, library, and forego our wish list. Let's slow the train down.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify, I was referring to the opening of the South End Station, but I mentioned that. We need to go into another meeting. I appreciate your patience, and I'm sorry if you didn't have an opportunity to speak your piece. We hope you will be able to stay or send us an email. You have an ability to put that on the record. Do we have to complete other business?
Yes.
We do?
Just the grant application.
Okay. If you could go quietly, we need to complete some business really quickly. Thank you, members of the public.
I'm going to make a recommendation. And that recommendation is dealing with this particular issue here. The fact of the matter is that we'll be making a recommendation to ourselves. We're the same body. I recommend deferring the decision on this to the City Commission itself, and that's my motion.
Yes. I'll second it. Moved by Commissioner Neely, seconded by myself. So we have a missing member. Is there a discussion on that?
I'm
All right,
willing to do that too.
Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Tidwell?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
And Chair Norris?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Okay, let's go into the grant match program, which Urban Renewal does for the property at 701 Main. Nancy Kreshower, please, for staff.
Good evening, Mayor Norris and Urban Renewal Commissioners. What you have before you tonight is a grant request for property owned by Funnel Box, Inc. This is for the La Familia Pizza restaurant on the main floor. They are doing some significant improvements, and they certainly qualify for an Urban Renewal grant match program. And I only wanted to point out one thing. When we were preparing the report, we've neglected to include the costs they've asked for the back deck. And so rather than asking for $37,6450, they would be requesting $5,237.
One more time, could you repeat the total amount?
Yes, rather than requesting the 376450, which is in the staff report on page 2 of 3, they would be requesting $5,237. And then I also would note that you have the discretion to approve the $155 for flower pots because they would not be permanent.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, Nancy, I didn't hear that last, about the flower
That's-
pots.
Yeah, 155.
The flower pots they're proposing are, yeah, they're asking for $155, and those would not be permanently,
Okay.
they could be moved, so that's at your discretion to approve those or not.
Are there questions of this grant, this match? This is our part of our matching fund? Any questions? Or may I have a motion, please?
I've moved to approve the $5,237 as a matching grant from the Urban Renewal District to this project. I wish to omit the, actually the flower pots.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Neely, seconded by Commissioner Tidwell. Is there public comment? Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Tidwell?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Chair Norris?
Aye. Motion approved, so the grant is approved. And we need to adjourn. I don't need to announce an executive session here, do I? I don't need to announce executive session here, do I? Do I announce it now?
Before you do it.
Yeah, just there, okay. Let's move quickly into the chamber, put it together chambers. And, yeah, we're going to.